Hi, I'm Adam Summer. You're listening to the Yerushalmi Talk podcast with the support of the Yeshivat Devar Yerushalayim in Har Nof, Jerusalem. This is Demai chapter 7, Halacha 6. This is part 2 of the shir, and wow, this is a beauty. Today we are getting into the puzzles of this Masechet in the Yerushalmi. These are put in here. These are tithing puzzles for Demai that are put in here to sharpen the students' minds. And we see here that there's these, like the words of the sages and the riddles. This is from Proverbs 1:6. And I just want to read to you from the Shenis Eliyahu, which is the Vilna Goan's commentary about this coming up part of these sugyas that we're going to get into today. The sages, he says, the Vilna Goan says, expressed simple matters in obscure ways in order to train the students how to think so that they'll be able to comprehend difficult and profound matters that cannot be expressed any other way. And the Rambam comments about this, that this was done simply to make the Torah more precious to students by forcing them to exert themselves to fathom the meaning. So these are Yerushalmi puzzles that are put in here that are to help you start to get proficiency in the thinking of this concept. And you see the same kind of concept be done by Rabbi Yochanan, the author of the Yerushalmi, in Masechet Trumos. At the end of Masechet Trumos, they give you a Hanukkah oil Truma puzzle that you can only get the answer for if you've gone through the Masechet. And if you've gone through it, you'll get the answer. And if you didn't go through it, you're not going to come up with the right answer. Same is going to be over here. We're going to have these puzzles that at the very last puzzle is going to be a case where if you've been paying attention to Masechet Demai, you'll be able to fathom the deeper points of the problem and work it out. And if you didn't do it, you're just going to miss it. You're not going to get the answer. It's going to be invisible to you. And these are puzzles that are put in here to sharpen your mind. And I encourage you that if you want to get into some of these puzzles, these Yerushalmi puzzles, and go through the mathematics of it and go through the logic of it, that you'll be better for it. And these are put here purposefully to hold on to our tradition and to hold on to sort of the derech of how these things work. In particular here, we're going to be dealing with tithing Demai. So the case is going to come like this. It's going to now work on the final case of the Mishnah to introduce the discussion. And in the Mishnah it says, if he stated the maestros of these two baskets, each basket's maestros are going to be designated in the other basket. He's successfully designated the maestros of the produce of both baskets. Again, this is going to be the third case that we talked about in the Mishnah where you're making this designation simultaneously. You are having two baskets of fruit, and as the Rashi points out in a parallel in the Bavli, it's basically all treated like one single pile of fruit. Okay? So yes, it's physically in two different baskets, but you're really treating it like one group of fruit. And that's why this simultaneous designation works, whereas doing what we saw in the second case of the Mishnah, doing this, then that, then that, then this, doesn't work. So the case that we're going to get into here is going to be kosher. Everybody agrees that this does work, doing a simultaneous thing. Why is the simultaneous designation on the two baskets of fruit going to work? Because it's treated like one pile of fruit. So the Mishnah stated in this third and final case that where one designates the maestros for both baskets at the same time, both baskets become fixed, and one must still physically separate these maestros. So the Gemara is going to get into how that's done. So again, you have a verbal declaration that gets made. Now physically you have to take it out. Physically, what are you taking out of this? So the Gemara says, what does he do to separate the maestros? Now we're getting into the physical part. And as we saw in chapter 7, Halacha 5, Rabbi Yossi's point over there was that you're going to make a mental designation, and there has to be a physical designation. It has to be a taseh. It all has to be done in a range of about the same time. You're really doing it all at the same time. That was the idea of Rabbi Yossi in chapter 7, Halacha 5. So you've made a designation to make the tithes, to rectify it, and now you physically are taking out. So how do you physically take out from the figs, let's say, in both baskets, right? Now it's treated like one pile of fruit. You have to physically take it out. So the Gemara says, what does he do to separate the maestros? And the Gemara cites a brisa. It says, now this, by the way, is assuming that you have 100 figs in each of the baskets. It says he takes 20 figs from whichever basket he wishes. So these 20 figs, which will be a fifth, is going to represent the total Meiser Rishon that has to be separated from the two baskets. And at first glance, the total Meiser for both baskets should be more than 10, since he's separating for one basket from without. But the Bryce is teaching that this is not so, and that the extra amount of Meiser he separates from one basket on behalf of the other reduces the amount of tevel left in the basket itself, so that when he separates Meiser from that basket on behalf of itself, he's going to be separating less than 10. So the total amount for both baskets doesn't come to be more than 20. So if he separates Meiser Rishon from the first basket on behalf of the second basket, he has to take out 11 and 1/9 fig. So 1/9 is going to be, 11th of a fig. It's 0.11111 repeating. So it's 11.111 figs as Meiser. And since he's separating it without, the result is he will only have 88.9 figs of tevel left in the basket. And then when he goes and he separates the Meiser for that basket from within itself, he takes out 8.89 as a Meiser Rishon on the behalf, and then the total comes out to be 20 figs. So on this basket, it's going to be 11.11, and so basically 11 and a ninth. And over here, it's going to be 8.89. And you add it up, it comes up to 20. And so keep in mind, when you're doing for this basket and that basket, you're going to have a little bit more over here. You're going to have a little bit less over here, but it's going to equal out to be 20 when you put the two together. Again, keep in mind, you have 100 figs over here in basket A, 100 figs over here in basket B, and you're going to take out the maestros from both baskets. Effectively, you're treating it like one pile of fruit. You're taking over from this pile and then that pile, and basically, what do you have to take out? You have to take out 20 figs. So you can take that all out from the first basket, by the way. And again, this is all made simultaneously. You can take it out from basket A, or you can take it all out from basket B. You can split it up. You can take 10 from this, 10 from that. You could take 20 from this and 0 from that. And that is one of the things. And when he goes and he separates each basket on behalf of the other, the meisos that gets separated from each basket reduces the amount of tevel in that basket by the same proportion, so that the total amount from both baskets is going to be no different than separating both of them from within. And the Gemara says that, of these, when he's separating from the two baskets, of these 20 figs, each 10 that he takes contains one fig that must be given as Trumos Meiser. And then from the 20 figs of the Meiser Rishon, he may separate any 2 figs as Meiser, Trumos Meiser, and thereby permit the consumption of all the other figs. So the idea is that, says Rosh Cirilio, that the Meiser Rishon must be given to a Levi, and the Meiser Sheni must then be designated and deconsecrated onto the coins. And the Brisa is focusing on what must be removed in order to permit the consumption of the rest of the figs. What do you have to remove to make sure that you're not eating tevel? Because again, if the Trumas Meiser is still in there, yes, very nice, you took out the Truma Gedola, but the Truma Meiser is still in there, you still have tevel. You have to take out the Trumas Meiser. So the Vilna Goan explains about this in his explanation on the Shani Saliyahu about this Mishnah's last ruling, is explaining that since the original designation did not sanctify any fruits as Meiser, but merely restricted the eventual Meiser of the fruits of these baskets, he must now physically separate out the miser. So again, we have a physical designation portion that happens as well. It's not just a mental or a verbal designation. You physically have to take it out. And so this is the process of physically removing those ties. Again, we're talking about Demai here. We're talking because the Truma Gedola has been taken out. And as you see in this calculation, in this third part in the Mishnah, this is really referring to Demai, where Truma Gedola is not in this calculation. And by the way, if you open up and you look in the Art Scroll today or the Modern Siddur, it will have a portion today where you're taking out Truma Gedola, and that will be done by an estimate. And then in the statement, when you look carefully, if you're getting from a source where you know the rest of the ties have not been taken out, it will say that after these ties, that 1/5 is going to be designated as the other ties. And that's going to be basically the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni in there. So that's basically taking out the Tevel restriction. And what do you do today for the Meiser Sheni? Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni are still taken out, by the way. That's not something that went away. What do you do on the Meiser Sheni? You're putting them onto coins, and you want to deconsecrate onto the coins, and then you either save the coins until the Bet HaMikdash comes, or you throw them into the Dead Sea. But basically, that's how you treat it. But these are things that have not gone away. Now, before we get on to the rest of the Brisa, the Gemara is going to point out a basic difference between this case, and it's going to give really another set of examples to deepen your thinking about the Gemara. So far we're dealing with two equal baskets. One basket has 100 figs, second basket has 100 figs. But what happens if you're going to take out, and again, now you've made your designation simultaneously. You have to physically do the work now. What happens if you have 100 figs over here and you have 200 figs over there? That's the case we're going to be getting into. And then the case after that Yerushalmi is going to give you is what happens if you have 100 figs over here in basket A and you have 1,000 figs in basket B. Now, we were looking in basket A, and it says, well, you're going to be taking out 11 and 1/9 figs, right? 11.111111 figs, right? So if you scale that up to having 100 figs in basket A and 1,000 figs in basket B, well, you need to take out, for all of it together, there's 1,100 figs. You need to take out a number that ends up being greater than the number of figs in basket A, right? You have to take out more than 100 figs to rectify 1,100 figs, and you don't have that. You don't have as many figs as you need to tithe in basket A, right? So now you physically have to do the work. It's going to teach you how to do the physical work. So the Brisa says, so far, the Brisa has explained what do we do where the two baskets are equal and they each contain the same number of figs. And again, it's keeping it at round numbers to make it just very easy to do and to think about. But the Brisa now is going to talk about what do you do in cases where the baskets have unequal numbers of figs. It can be other fruits that you want to tithe as well. The Gemara is just using figs. And by the way, why is it using figs? Because there's a theme that comes up all over the place in Zerayim, talking about the merit of learning how to tithe figs. And in fact, in I believe it's in Maisros. In Maisros, the Gemara over there in Maisros is talking about a case with Rabbi Zera coming up with these people trying to figure out a Gadada, and they're all wrong on this stuff. And he says it's better that you go back to learning the halacha of tithing figs. So there's a thing about tithing figs. It's always used as the example for tithes in Zerayim, that or grain, but it's very common that it's referring to the counting and tithing of figs. That's the normal example. So like in the modern world today, like you want to talk about business things and a product in general, you talk about a widget, right? You use the word widget, which is actually a word made up by Harvard just to talk about a generic thing, right? So over here, what is that generic thing? We're talking about figs. We're tithing figs. So that's a little bit of backstory on the figs. So now you had equal baskets. What happens if you have unequal baskets? What are you going to be able to do? And this is trying to teach you something deep that you can take everything from a second basket, or you can take portions from different baskets. So Gemara says, if there were 100 figs in this basket and 200 figs in that basket, the rule is as follows, says this Gemara. It says, if he is separating Meiser Rishon for the sake of the 100 fig basket alone, and he's taking the Meiser from the 200 fig basket, then he must separate 11 figs from the 200 basket. But if he's separating Meiser Rishon for the sake of the 200 basket as well, in other words, he's separating Meiser Rishon for both baskets simultaneously, then he separates a total of 30 figs. So again, you have 100 over here, you have 200 over here. There's 300 in total. And if you're going to be doing simultaneously, we're going to be doing all of it together, you're going to be taking out 30 figs. So let's cover both of the cases. And the case that is brought up is that in this case, if you're separating both maestros from the smaller basket, according to the Marafulda, when the Bryce is speaking of separating from the larger basket, it refers to the case of separating on behalf of the smaller basket only. And when it speaks of separating from the smaller basket, it's referring to a case where you're separating on behalf of both the baskets. So, again, when we're getting into like the precision of 11 figs, it's not actually 11. It's 11.19 figs. It's a ninth of a fig. That comes out to 0.1111 repeating. So it's 11.111. And anyway, when you're taking for both, you're going to have a little bit more over here and a little bit less over here, but it's going to add up to be a total of 30. So if you have where you have to take out the Meiser from the smaller basket and then the bigger basket, and the total Meiser for both baskets is going to end up being on the bigger basket 21.25, and on the smaller basket it will be 8.75, and that comes up to a total of 30. And that's how you're ending up with it. And, again, this is on page 73A1 in the art scroll, and you can go back and start, looking at the calculations and the numbers on how this stuff works. So the Gemara continues and says, but if in one basket there were 100 figs, and the other basket there's 1,000 figs. Now this is here trying to teach you this principle that, now I have a greater number of tithes than exists in the first basket, right? I need more than to tithe both of them. I need more than I can just take from the first basket. What do I do? This is trying to teach you physically that you can take out from the second basket, it's no problem. Or you can take out almost all of them from the first basket and some of them from the second basket. And again, the point is that when you're putting the two baskets together and tithing them both simultaneously, you're treating it like one pile of fruit. That's the idea. So again, this case now is talking about where you have 1,000 figs in basket B, 100 figs in basket B. There's a total of 1,100 figs, and the tithes on 1,100 figs is going to be greater than the number of figs that you have in basket A. So the rule is as follows. It says, if he is separating Meiser Rishon for the sake of the 100 fig basket alone, and he's taking the Meiser from the 1,000 fig basket, he must separate 11 figs from it. So more precisely, this is going to be 11.19 figs. Why is that, right? So if he's taking out from, this is saying that if he's separating the Meiser Rishon for the sake of the 100 fig basket alone, okay, and he's going to be taking the Meiser from the 1,000 fig basket, right? So you have cases where it's like case one in the first case that we had in this Mishnah, right, where you're going to take basket A, tithe for basket B, and you're taking out the amount of tithes so that you can use the other basket. How much do you take out if there's 100 figs? You take out 11 and 1/9 fig. This is going to be 11.1111 repeating. And it would be the same as if you're going to do for 100 figs and you have the 200 fig basket and you want to take out from the 200 fig basket, just for the 100 fig basket, what do you take out? You take out 11 figs, 11 and 1/9 figs, because there is 100 figs. So, but now the case is like this. The case that it's talking about is if you want to do and treat both of them. You're going to take out and rectify 1,100 figs. Now what are you doing? Before, you were taking from the basket of the 1,000 figs and you're rectifying this 100 basket. Now you're going to actually be treating this 1,100 figs together. What do you do? And it says that if he's separating Meiser Rishon for the sake of the 1,000 baskets as well, the 1,000 fig basket as well, so he's basically going to be separating from the smaller basket on behalf of both baskets, and basically he's going to be collecting this as one pile of fruit for 1,100 figs instead of just 100 figs, or 1,000 figs is now put together, and you're making this designation simultaneously. And it says, even if he takes the entire basket of the 100 figs and he designates it as Meiser Rishon, it does not complete the amount necessary to rectify both baskets. Why? Because there's a total of 1,100 figs in both baskets, and the Meiser Rishon from both comes out to be 110 figs. So the smaller basket only has 100 figs, but you need 110 figs. So the 10 figs have to be separated from the larger basket in order to do both. And again, what this is trying to teach is this is trying to give you some sort of flexibility in your mind when you physically have to do this now, that you can empty out all of basket 1, okay, no problem, and you have some left over, and you can take some from basket 2. That's what it's trying to teach you. So in the first case, you could take all of it from basket 1, so you can take out the 20 figs from basket 1, no problem. In the second case, where you have 100 and 200, you could take out all of the 30 in basket 1. But now, when you're dealing with 1,100 figs and you only have 100 in basket 1, you need 1,100, or you need to tithe 110 figs for this 1,100 figs. And what do you take out? Well, you only have 100, so you can take out an empty basket 1, and you can take a little bit out from basket 2. And so that will work for fixing the Meiser Rishon obligation for both. Now, the Gemara is going to get into some of the mathematics of this, and this is really very beautiful. And the Gemara now talks about the mathematical formula for calculating the total Meiser obligation. That's going to be both the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni for any given amount of fruit. So this is the formula. No matter how much fruit you have, this will be what it is. So if you have a basket of fruit and you want to tithe and you want to remove from the basket the amount of fruit you will need for both the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni. Now, keep in mind that this does not mean that you're going to remove the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni at the same time. And we saw this in the first part of the Shir in chapter 7, Halacha 6, that violates a positive commandment in the Torah. You're not allowed to do it. But it's teaching you basically how much you need to take out if you're going to do Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni, but it's not simultaneously. First you're doing this, then you're taking that out, and then it's going to teach you how much do you take out. And by the way, the amount comes out to be 19 fruit. Comes out to be 19. So whenever you're always taking out 19%. Okay, that's what it's going to come out to be. But you have to have on how much to do, because again, you can't do it simultaneously. You have to do it in order. And so here's how it works. It says, one of his basket of fruit that he wishes to tithe, he should take from it 2/9 and 1/9 of a ninth, which in a basket of 100 fruits comes out to 10 fruits of Meiser Rishon and 9 of Meiser Sheni. So again, when we're talking about the formula, we're saying that we're dealing with ninths. Okay, so first, from the way it works is you take out your Trum Gedola, and that's going to be an approximation of 1 or 2%. And again, it's always by estimation for Truma Gedola, but the Meiser Rishon and the Meiser Sheni are exact. Those are exact tithes. And even today, that's still going to be an exact tithe. And the way it works is the Meiser Rishon, you're taking out 10% of what's left. And then after, with the Meiser Sheni, you're taking out 10% of what's left. So how much are you taking out when you're taking out the Meiser Rishon in the first part? You're going to be taking out 10 fruit, right? Because you have 100 figs that have already been tithed of Truma Gedola, right? So you're dealing with something like 102 to start. You take out your 2, you're left with 100 figs. Now, you want to separate out the rest of the tithes for the Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni. Now, you're taking out a tenth, right? So that's 10 figs. That's 10 for the Meiser Sheni. And then what is left? You have 90, right? There's 90 figs that are left. Then you take out your 9 figs that are there. That's a total of 19. And so that's how it works. So it's always basically 19%. And, first time is going to be 10% of what's left after Truma Gedola. Then you have, after that, 10% of what's left again. And in this case, you have, 10 figs and then 9 figs. So the Gemara wonders and says, but why doesn't the Brisa just say 19 figs? Just take out 19 figs and that will rectify it and leave the other 81 that you can do. What's the purpose of giving this formula? That's what the Yerushalmi is asking. And Rabbi Zera answers what the purpose of giving this formula is. Rabbi Zera says, this is an example of the words of the sages and their riddles. And this is a way that the sages will express themselves in riddles in order to teach a deeper lesson. And the purpose of this formula is not just to teach the total number of Meiser that's separated from the 100 fruits, but it's to teach the general rule for separating Meiser from without as well. And we're going to get into that in a second. So in Torah law, there's 2 separations. There's going to be from within and there's going to be from without. And that comes up all over the place. So for instance, if somebody accidentally does me'ila, they have a 5th penalty to whatever the value was. Now that 5th sounds like 20%. But when you actually do the mathematics of it, because it's from without, you're actually adding 25% of the value. So again, from within, from without, we're going to get into that in a second. But this is all here to teach you how to think deeply. And the Rambam says that this is done to make Torah more precious to the students and forcing them to exert themselves to get this deeper meaning. And the Yerushalmi, he says, express themselves in brief and enigmatic expressions purposefully and not due to any lack of proficiency or clarity of language, but it's to teach you a deeper lesson. It's, in other words, what they want you to do is get out a pen and pencil and do it. And when you go through this, and I was thinking about this for about an hour, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper the more you work on it. It's really very beautiful, but you can't come up with the right answer unless you've been really going through Masechet Demai and really understanding Masechet Demai. If you haven't done it, you're not going to come up with the right answer on this stuff. So the brilliancy here is that you've basically bought Demai, okay? It means the Truma Gedola has been taken out of it. Now you have to separate out the rest of the tithes. And let's say you bought this 1,000 fig basket. And let's say now you have a wife and she wants to make you a fig pie. This is not any fig pie. This is a special fig pie that requires exactly 100 figs. And these figs, you want to serve it to a haver. So you want to make sure that this 100 fig pie is fully rectified of any, Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni. So now this is going to be a case of tithing without, right? So before we were talking about, how much tithes do you need to do if you're going to take, the 100 figs and the 200 figs, add them together like 100. How many figs you take out from within this pile? You take out 30 figs, no problem. But now you have a case where you want to end up with 100 figs that's used, that's already tithed. It means I have to add figs to this amount and separate from the figs, this greater number of figs than 100. And in order to end up with the figs that are tithed that I added, plus the figs that are in this cake. So this is really what you're getting at. So based on this formula of 19%, the Gemara is going to elaborate how many fruits are needed to be separated from a basket containing 100 fruits in order to rectify all of them for both the Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni obligations. So basically what this is saying, and this is the deep point here, right? This is not saying that you have a pile of tevel over here and that you have, this 100 fig basket. This is saying that you purchased the 100 fig basket, you're going to purchase this 1,000 fig basket, and you want to take out some of the ties. It means that you're not taking from this 1,000 fig basket the Truma Gedola, because that's already been taken out. What are you taking out? You have to take out Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni. You can't just add figs to... Your wife wants to come up with this 100 fig cake. You can't just add figs to this cake, right? You say, okay, this 100 fig cake, I have to tithe. I want to add tithes to it. How many figs do I have to add in order to get to 100 figs that are totally tithed? That's what it means without. And that's how you see with Me'ila that you can end up talking about a fifth and you end up really with 25%. Because you're talking about the total value from where you're trying to end up with a certain number in place, and you have to add to it in order to get to that certain number. So you're talking about more than 19 figs. Why? Because I have to add figs, but I have to tithe those figs I'm adding. That's what it's trying to teach. So you're going to end up with more than 19%. So how many figs do you do? So this formula comes up many, many times in the oral law. So again, within and without. And again, when we're talking about without, that means that you're adding to the quantity in order to get this amount that's settled. So if I want to end up with 100 figs, I have to add a greater number of figs to tithe to end up with 100 that are fully tithed. So the Gemara says one who wishes to bring 100 rectified figs into the house and he wishes to rectify all 100 of them from without so that he may be able to use all 100 for himself. Let's say for making this 100 fig cake, he must take for each and every fig 2/9 and 1/9 of a ninth of a fig from the other figs of tevel. So this amounts to 23 figs and 4/9 of a fig and 1/9 of a fig. So what's 1/9 of a fig? This is going to be 1/81st of a fig. 1/9 of a ninth is 1/81st. And, basically what's 1/9 of a ninth is 1/81st. And then it says that you have to bring 2/9 of 100. What is 2/9 of 100? Well, we know that 1/9 of 100 is 11.1111 repeating, right? So what is 11.1111? That's going to be 22. So 11 plus 11 is 22. And then you have 1/9, which is 11, right? 0.11111 repeating. So that says that you need 22 and 2/9 figs, right? But that is just talking about what you would need. That's not talking about how much you're adding to fix that extra 22 and 2/9 figs, right? So if I want to end up with 100 figs for this 100 fig cake, okay, I'm talking about adding 22 and 2/9 figs. But those 22 and 2/9 figs have to have the Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni taken out. So I have to add more to that. So what am I adding? So that's really the trick. So really the number in total is going to come out to 23 and 4/9 figs. So it's going to be this base of 22 and 2/9 figs. And then you have to separate out Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni for this 22 and 2/9 figs. And that's going to be where you're going to be adding a fig plus 2/9 plus 1/81. So again, to take out for 22 and 2/9 figs, what are you adding? You're adding another 1 fig plus 2/9. So that's, 22.2222 repeating, plus another 1/9 of a ninth. So what is 1/9 of a ninth? That's going to be 1/81, 1 over 81. And so what does that end up coming out to be? It's going to be a total of 23 and 4/9 plus another 1/81 in addition. And I believe the number comes out to a total of like 23.6 figs or something. In that, basically, it's like 0.6 something figs, 0.64 figs or something like that. But basically, what it's trying to teach you is that if you're coming up to add figs to it, you have to tithe the figs that you're adding. That's what it's trying to teach you. And you can go through the mathematics of this more, and it will deepen your thinking about this. And, the reason this Bryce is giving this larger number is that when separating the Meiser Sheni from without, you're using fruit from somewhere else that has not been fully tithed. That's the point. In other words, that you can't just add 22 and 2/9 figs, because now you're adding something that also has to be tithed. And that's sort of the trick of what it's making you go through the math to do. Did you really understand Masechet Demai or not? Because now you're coming to fix to get this 100 figs. But don't you know that you have to tithe what you're already working on? And if you don't know that, and you're not going to tithe what you're already working on, you're just going to end up with the answer as 22 and 2/9 figs. You're going to forget, I have to tithe these other figs, right? So you have to take these 22 and 2/9 figs. You have to tithe them too. And that's how you're getting up to that, 23 and 4/9 plus, 1/9 of a ninth. A ninth of a ninth is 1/81. And so that comes out to be something like, 23.6, a little bit estimate. There's some decimals. There's some more, numbers in there. But basically the point is, the deeper point that, you're taking from something that also has to have the Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni taken out. And this is here as a tool to get you to deepen your thinking about Torah. This is to get you to deepen your understanding about the law. Did you really, you went through Masechet Demai. We're almost at the end of chapter 7. Did you really understand how the tithes work? And if you don't really get it, well, then you're not going to come up with the right answer. And that comes up many, many times in Zerayim, in the Yerushalmi, that, it'll give you these sort of puzzles, and if you didn't really get it, you're going to come up with the wrong answer. So it's worth going through just as a hobby, spending a little time, looking at it. Again, you can find that in 73, A1 and A2 in the Art Scroll, and you'll be better off for it. It'll sharpen your mind, and you get a lot of credit in Shemayim for working on these things. Have a great day.